Do you welcome what Jeremy Corbyn has had to say?
Yes, I do. I think what's going to happen is that the Prime Minister is going to come back to the House of Commons on the 12th of March with what she hopes is going to be an amended deal. We'll have to see how she gets on. The proposal that was put forward by my colleagues Peter Kyle and Phil Wilson, I think now has the support of Labour's leadership, is that Parliament would endorse that deal subject to its ratification in a public vote. And the choice in the subsequent public vote would be between leaving the European Union on the basis of the deal the Prime Minister had negotiated or not leaving the European Union or staying in the EU, and that seems to me a very sensible way forward.
Oh, well, Sir Keir Starmer has said, no deal wouldn't be on the ballot paper in a second referendum, but the polls show that actually, some of the polls I've seen show that actually no deal Brexit is preferable to remaining for an awful lot, or certainly a second referendum for many people. In the event of the choice being between a deal which pretty much no one other than the Prime Minister, Ollie Robbins, seems to think is a good deal, and there's no expectation really that we are going to see a big change to the backstop. The Irish have said they won't agree to it. It has to be EU 27 unanimity on this. Then if it's supposed to be a deal that no one wants and an option that was rejected in the 2016 referendum, that would be a bizarre referendum to hold, wouldn't it?
Well, the Prime Minister has, I think, genuinely done her level best to come up with a way that we leave the European Union with minimal economic damage. There would still be economic damage, but it would be kept to a minimum on the basis of her deal. If we were to leave with no deal, then we do huge economic damage. And I don't think Parliament is going to allow that to happen. I don't think Parliament should allow that to happen. We've already had Honda announce the closure of its plant in Swindon. Nissan
Stephen, you know perfectly well that Brexit isn't the reason why that's happened. You're an MP that I have liked and respected for many, many years and considered to be a very honourable man. You know that the Brexit is not the reason why that is happening. Please don't come on my show and make claims that you know are untrue.
Brexit is the reason, because if we had a no deal Brexit, there would be a 10% duty imposed on every British car exported to the EU, as the great majority of them are. That would make car making in the UK uneconomic. And there are those who support Brexit who think that's a price worth paying. That's not my view. I don't think it's going to be Parliament's view. I think we need to make sure we can continue to make cars and lots of other things in the UK, and that requires us not leaving the EU without a deal.
Okay, we're going to move on from that. In terms of support for this second referendum, speaking to a number of experts today, people are following this very closely, there aren't the votes in the House of Commons for that, because particularly lots of Labour MPs, and a lot of Tory Eurosceptics as well, point out that they stood on manifestos in 2017 where they said they would respect the outcome of this referendum. It took not just years, it took decades. 2 manifesto pledges from the Tories before the manifesto pledge was actually brought to life with the referendum in 2016. Do you think it's reasonable in a democracy to not enact the result of the last referendum, which did come about as a result of a manifesto pledge from the Tories, to not enact that and to hold another referendum for which there is no mandate?
Well, the Prime Minister hopes to bring back a proposal for leaving the EU with this amended deal. It seems to be perfectly reasonable that once we know what that deal is, people should have the opportunity again to say, do we want to go ahead with this or not?
But surely one of the options, if there were a referendum, would be that the option of leave without any deal, or leave should be on the referendum ballot paper.
Well, I don't think it should be, because of the economic damage that would do to the UK.
But that's an opinion. That's not the same. That's not the same as what is sort of constitutionally right or wrong. If we had a referendum in 2017, as we did, which had leave or remain, and remain lost, then leave has a greater moral right to be on the ballot paper than remain, does it not?
Well, leave would be on the ballot paper. It would be leaving on the basis of the Prime Minister's deal.
But a deal that no one in Parliament supports. Barely anyone in Parliament supports.
Well, at the moment, there's not very much support for it. I mean, the Prime Minister is trying to get it amended in the hope that she will get support for it when she comes back, and we'll have to see how she gets on.
Okay.
But Parliament is here to protect the interests of the country. And
is it?
A lot of us,
I don't think that's what Parliament's job is at all. I think Parliament's job is to represent the British people's views.
And a lot of us take the view that I think the majority of us in Parliament take the view that protecting the economic interests of the UK means we mustn't leave the EU without a deal.
Even if that's what the British people want.
Well,
I know what you were thinking then. You were thinking, yes, you think the British people got it wrong, and the people who know better than them need to decide the future. That's what you think, isn't it?
No, that isn't what I think. The Prime Minister is going to have a deal. I think it's perfectly sensible, once that deal has been concluded and Parliament thinks it looks reasonable, for the people to have a choice. Do we want to proceed on the basis that the Prime Minister has negotiated, or do we, everything considered, think it's better to stay in the EU?
Stephen Timms, thank you very much for joining us. He's a Labour MP, a member of the Brexit Select Committee, very much in support of what Jeremy Corbyn has announced last night. Let's talk to Daniel Hannan now. He's a Conservative MEP for South East England, a prominent Leave campaigner. Good morning to you, Daniel.
Good morning.
What do you make of, first of all, what Jeremy Corbyn had to say last night of a second referendum?
Well, first of all, you just heard there from Stephen Timms, the plan is to take Leave off the ballot paper at all. So there won't be a meaningful referendum. It'll be, if they get their way, a choice between remaining in all but name or remaining in name. And the victory that was won by the largest number of British people who've ever voted for anything will be taken off the ballot paper. And I'm afraid I think you were onto something when you said, basically, the Labour Party and the Tory MPs backing this think the people got it wrong and think that they shouldn't be allowed to choose again. You know, Labour will do anything for the working man except ask his opinion.
This is it. We know that there isn't a mandate for the second referendum because we know from the polling for that. But we also know that neither of the two main parties has stood on a general election platform saying this is what we're going to deliver. If there is, though, a concerted effort by Remainers in Parliament, and we know that you sit in the European Parliament, but in Parliament we have about 2/3 Remain majority. If there is a concerted effort to get this through, that it will actually happen, what would be the result?
Well, I think the impact on our democracy would be catastrophic. It may have seemed unthinkable to people listening here that there would be another vote after we'd voted in such numbers to leave the EU. Of course, the EU has done this in a lot of other countries. When they don't like the result of a referendum, they send people away to vote again. They've done it in Denmark, in France, in the Netherlands, in Ireland twice. You know, go away, Paddy. We'll think about it. We'll say it more slowly for you this time. I think we probably assumed that we were too big and too serious a democracy to be treated that way. But it looks as though we may have been wrong. I mean, there is something inexorable about the process of European integration, which is what people were voting against in the first place, and this is exactly demonstrating why we did.
And in terms of the fallout from this for the Labour Party and indeed the Conservative Party, the majority of Remain MPs in both cases, if they do this, we know there are huge efforts right now by Eurosceptics to infiltrate Tory Party membership, to deselect Remoaner MPs, not those who voted Remain, but those who are trying to undermine Brexit post-referendum. We know there are an awful lot of Leave Labour voters in Midlands and northern constituencies who will be horrified by what Jeremy Corbyn has had to say. Do you think the fallout will be, you said it was an impact on our democracy would be catastrophic. What about the impact on the actual political parties?
I mean, I have to say I haven't seen any real infiltration of the Tory party by any kind of new concerted entries. There was a little drift back after the referendum result from people who joined UKIP, 10 years earlier, but I haven't seen anything since then. No, I think the much more dangerous the menace for both main parties is that they will cease to be believed on anything. As you correctly said, both Conservative and Labour parties, and indeed 87% of all MPs currently in the House of Commons, were returned in 2017, a little more than 18 months ago, on the basis of clear manifesto promises that they would respect the referendum result. If they now turn around and say that they don't mean that we got it wrong, they know better, and all the rest of it, I think that the impact both on the legitimacy of our parliamentary institutions and the appeal of our traditional parties will be absolutely calamitous. And I think we could be looking at a complete redrawing of the British party system.
And in the event this referendum does take place, and in the event that there is no leave option, a simple pure leave under no matter what we want to leave option, what do you think will happen? Will there be a deliberate attempt to organise a boycott? I mean, we had this massive mandate, say 72% of voters in 2016. If we had, say, a turnout of 30 or 40%, that would send a different message to political parties. But nevertheless, would still be legally binding, would it not?
We'd have no option but to boycott because leave wouldn't be on the ballot paper. And I think we would be quite right to say, look, you told us in the clearest possible language that this was the one binding generational vote. You Remainers particularly. It wasn't just the government leaflet; it was the Lib Dem leaders and the people who are now in this independent group. They were the people voting Remain who were the loudest in saying, we're never going to get another vote and so on. If they now turn around and come back and say, well, yeah, but this time we really mean it. This really is going to be the final vote. I think the only acceptable response from the public, and the inevitable one, will be one of contempt. We'll just say, well, do you know what? We don't trust you anymore. And if you don't win this one, what, best of 3, best of 5, a regular test like the cricket? I mean, forget it. You told us last time that it was final and binding. We have voted. That was our view, and we're not going to dignify this kind of farce with our participation.